Oliver Pichon Luthier here, and we had cut the slots in this fingerboard, fretboard yesterday, and now what I've done is I've marked out here where we're going to cut this, and what I've done is it's 1 3/8 wide, the fretboard at the nut. And so what I've done is I've found my center line here still, and I've measured over 22 32 on either side, which will give me that 1 3/8, and then I have subtracted from that 3 32 on each side, which makes it at 19 32 on each side. The reason for subtracting that 3 32 from each side is to be able to have room to put on the bindings. And the reason for bindings on a fretboard is that you may have noticed when you have instruments in the past that the tang, which is, if we look at a piece of fret wire here, the tang is this portion of the fret which goes into the slot. And a lot of instruments, you will see the edge of that on the side of the fretboard. But in my opinion, that can create a problem, because if the wood shrinks a little bit in drier weather, like in the wintertime if you have your heat on, that little piece can stick out and it can be sharp. It could cut your fingers. And also I think it's kind of unsightly, and I think it looks better to not see it. So we are going to put a binding on the edge of these fretboards to cover that tang. That'll mean that we'll have to step the tang, and we have a tool for that, tang nippers, that we'll use for that, so that it'll go in the slot, and then the top of the fret, the crown of the fret, will then extend over the top of the binding. But and I just wanted to check and make sure. So I've cut this square on the end on the table saw, and if I put my square on here to check this, I can, right on the edge of it, I can put this here, the ruler up against my square, and check to make sure that my center line is right down the middle, which it is. It's right down the center, and it's square. The center line is square to this cut, and that cut is actually parallel to all of the fret slots that we did. So now we're going to cut this, and then we're going to plane it down and get it absolutely true, getting ready for putting on those bindings. So we'll take this over to the bandsaw. Now, when you're cutting anything on the bandsaw like this, you don't want to cut right on the line. You want to give yourself a little bit extra, because then you can come in with a hand plane later and true it, because it's almost impossible to get the bandsaw to give you a really sharp, clean cut that's going to be plain, smooth, and true to be able to glue on anything. So in this case, we're just going to cut this right on that, a little bit outside of the line on both sides. we go. We've cut that, and now we're going to take it over to our area here where we're going to plane those to get them so they're right where we want them to be. So the grain is very, very nice on this little fretboard. I'm going to plane it, I think, this way. We'll see if we get any tear out at all, then we'll have to turn it around. I find it's helpful for me anyway to put this clamp this little board here to keep the plane from pushing it over. And so there we go. We'll see how this goes. Off of this end, not quite so much off on that end. Okay, that looks like it's pretty even, so we just need to take it down to the pencil line. Okay, it's there. A little more here. That looks good. Okay. So that's good. And we can inspect this and we see that we really don't have any tear out at all with the plane, so that's really good. That means that this one is going to be a little trickier because we'll probably have to turn it over to plane it to avoid tear out, so we'll just have to keep checking it. Plane's just taking off all those high spots. Yeah, we have a ways to go, but it's looking pretty parallel to the pencil line. No tear out. Okay, and we're parallel, but we have to take it down some more. So it's pretty close on this end, and we have some more to do on this end, so just take a little bit more here. It's looking good. Okay. It's perfectly parallel with the pencil line. We just have to take it down another stroke or two. That looks actually pretty good. I think maybe if we set the plane, pull the blade up just slightly so we take off a little thinner shaving. See how that is. Okay, that's just about perfect. So it's about perfect on both sides. Yeah, that's good. I can just see that pencil line. So what we can do is we can measure. And being that half of 1 3/8 is 22/32, or 11/16, we can just see how we are here. There's our center line, and that is just about dead right on. I know that it's going to be 28 at the 14th fret. The 14th fret is where it's going to meet the body. And so, yeah, we should be at 25, and we are. So that is perfect right there. So this is going to be the fretboard, and it's going to have the bindings put on the side of that. But I also like to put a little design binding down here on the bottom, and I usually do that first before I do the side bindings, because that way I can replane it so that it's perfectly square with this. So to do that, we'll take our ukulele here, and I guess I never did show, after I'd cleaned up the sides with a hand plane and the scraper, but I did the hand plane and the scraper on this, and then just went over it lightly with a little sandpaper. But this is how the bindings look now that it's all they're all glued on, and you can see there's no gaps anywhere. It's just really nice. So it's good. This is a little bit off on the purfling right there, but that's not a big deal because this fretboard is going to be going over the top of it. So what we want to do is see where I know that I've cut extra fret slots in this, and we know that if we're at the 14th, which is right here, and we have a midline on our ukulele here, which is going to be right, I can barely see where that glue joint is. I don't know if you can see it here, but it's right there, and I know that it goes right up through there. So that's going to be our midline here. I'm just going to put a very light pencil mark here so that we know where we're going in the future. So we know then that if we want to know where we're going to cut this, the way we figure that out is I have a little, this is a little piece that I have, which is exactly the size of the rosette that we have on there. So what we want to do is place this here so that the 14th fret is right there, and then we can put this here like this over the top, and that tells us that we need to, if I want the whole rosette, you know, a lot of time what people do is they just leave this a little bit long, and then they'll just cut the curve so it fits the inside of the sound hole. My design that I do, I like to see the whole rosette, and no one ever plays, that I know anyway, plays down this far on the fretboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my little design right in here so that this will be the last fret right here. So that's going to be, which is going to be 18, I believe. So if we have 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So this will be our last fret right there. And then we'll put our design in here. And that design that I make, which is like a little smile, is this. I have my little smile thing here, and so this is going to be what we're going to put in there. So okay, so I have that right there, and then this is going to get a piece of inlay that's going to sit right in there in that shape. So we're going to mark this here. I'm going to pull it down just a little bit because I want to make sure that there's enough ebony here, enough meat to hold that fret. So I'm going to just pull this down a little bit, and I'm going to use my square. I can't really use a square, can I, on that? But what I can use is this little guy here to know it just goes in the fret slot like that, and just get it parallel to that, which is right there. And then I can mark this. So we'll cut this. And so that means that when this sits here like this, it's always a good idea to double check yourself to make sure you're doing things correctly. And that means that then with the binding on it, it's just going to sit, it'll be right down next to this, to the rosette. Okay, so now I'm going to cut that out. Now this ebony is hard sometimes to see your pencil line, so you have to move the light around to make sure you can see it well. So now that we've cut this, we want to make sure that we can, you can, once again, I always do this where I always leave the pencil line, because I know that bandsaw isn't going to cut that as accurate as I'd like, and we're going to trim that with a Dremel on a base and a bit to where we want it to be. So I'm just going to set this in here like this in the vise. This vise has jaws on it that move like that. It's called, actually, I think it's called a gunmaker's vise, perhaps, something like that. Anyway, so now I'm going to put a bit in my Dremel, and we'll do that, and I'll do that in the next video.